The U.S. government has given billions of dollars to businesses in an effort to curb the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. The government will begin to pursue recouping these funds in 2021. Aggressive penalties will be imposed on companies that do not follow regulations and guidelines for proper use of these funds. Criminal charges are already being levied on fraudulent use. Don't suffer again. Get a customized business operations success suite from Elite 8 Tax and Financial Services for your company today. BOSS packages include entity formation, payroll, accounting and bookkeeping, tax planning, tax filings, and quarterly strategy sessions to minimize your tax liability, increase efficiency, and maximize your profits. Make your appointment today at elite8financial.com. Get the guidance, tools, and protection your business needs now. Get BOSS. Get behind the shield.
Welcome to Boss Talk Radio, the #1 online business and entrepreneurial talk show. Brought to you by Elite 8 Tax and Financial Services. Here's your host, the Texas tax expert, George Dandridge.
Welcome to another episode of Boss Talk Radio. Excited to have you guys here. This is the #1 entrepreneur and business owners show on the web. If you are joining us on Facebook, go ahead and share the video, create a watch party. Let's party on this Friday as we get into this topic. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and share the link. I want to do a couple little housekeeping things right quick before we bring in our guests. Want to let everybody know that we are hiring. Yes, we are hiring. We are looking for account executives, referral agents, tax preparers. We're expecting a very, very busy year, so we are not actually bringing in tax preparers at this time, but we are building out the life insurance team. So if you're looking to change a career and really impact families and make a difference in people's lives, be sure to hit us at jobs@elite8financial.com. That's jobs@elite8financial.com. You can send us an email there, schedule an interview, upload your resume, and we will reach out to you in a very timely manner. You're listening to Boss Talk Radio. I'm your host, George Dandridge. If you are watching this on a replay, be sure to hashtag comment replay. If you are tuning in live, be sure to give whichever mechanism you're watching on, be sure to give them authority to give them your name so that when you post, I can properly shout you out. And if you have questions for our guests, I'm telling you right now, you want to get your pen, you want to get your paper, because there's a wealth of information that's going to come to you. And we're going to kind of dig into everybody's favorite topic, but most sensitive topic, which is money, and really people's philosophies and relationships with money. We've determined that your relationship with money largely impacts how you really deal with it and whatnot. And so we have a certified financial educator in the building. She has been in Forbes, on MSNBC, CNBC, the list goes on. Welcome to the show, everybody. Miss Sharita M. Humphreys. How you doing today?
Hey, y'all. Happy Friday. It is Financial Friday.
Financial Friday. I like that. We're going to have to start incorporating a little bit of that. So before we jump into this psychology thing here, go ahead and tell everybody a bit about yourself, what it is you do, and your qualifications and whatnot.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for having me on your amazing platform. Guys, make sure that you're following George on every single platform. I'm Sharita Humphrey. I'm an award-winning financial educator and consultant. I'm the founder and CEO of Sharita M. Humphrey Consulting. We are a personal and business finance company that helps minority women better manage their money, pay off their debt, build positive personal and business credit while adding a few commas to their bank accounts to increase their net worth. So I'm all about making sure that I help to create financial trailblazers. People ask me, what is a financial trailblazer? A financial trailblazer is a person who is determined to create their own path to wealth. I am on a mission this year to create 1,000 financial trailblazers. So stay tuned to the conversation. I'm definitely excited to be able to share with you a little bit more about how I got here, who I am, a little bit more about my behind the scenes. And as George mentioned, I've been in everything from Forbes, Medium.com, Credit Karma, been a spokesperson for Capital One's debt management program here it's locally based here in Houston, where I reside, and also being a financial friend to iHeartMedia's Wealth Wednesdays with Angela and Stacey Tisdale. So I'm excited to be here, and let's start the conversation.
Well, it's an absolute honor to have you in the building. I've been following you for quite some time. We've been trying to get this scheduled for some time, and it's kind of going back and forth. So I am so glad to have you in here. And you know what I found is that timing always work out. What is meant to be will be. And so we've had a couple things come up this week that I never really quite planned this. It just goes this way. So we got you committed way back in December sometime, but who knew in December this week was going to be what it's going to be? So recently we started breaking up the show so we can give everybody a little bit every day and really focus on the guest and the message on Fridays. And so we talked in Boss Motivation about creating the lifestyle that you want, and everybody having the inherent ability to do so. Interestingly enough, when we got to the boss term of the week, we used the word excuse, and the dual side of it, excuse. A lot of people want to be excused for the excuses that they make when they're making these excuses, but that's fine, to each their own. My issue with people that make excuses, or want to be excused, is that you can't expect or feel entitled to the results from others when you made the choice not to get it in, basically. So that's what we talked about in the motivation part, and in the term of the week. And then on 5 Minutes of Fire, which just aired right before the show, that's that unapologetic part of the episode, we talked about value and what value do you bring to an organization. Now, the source of this conversation was coming from the ongoing conversation about increasing minimum wage and what it should be. So yesterday I put out the discussion really trying to see the balance of perspectives between business owners, self-employed, and employees as it related to what they thought, minimum wage should be, to what they thought the impact would be on small businesses in America when small businesses are the larger employer. And I learned quickly that a lot of people spoke from an emotional standpoint, not a true thought process. And further, there's some ambiguity to what small businesses are. A lot of people don't know that, a business can generate $25-40 million, have 200 employees, and still be considered a small business. I think everybody thinks it's the one person in the closet, hanging up something. So I was taking all of this into consideration, and I was like, I know how to best utilize Sharita's knowledge in this space. Let's talk about people's relationships with money and the psychology behind it, and who better to speak on that than you? Plus, there's an added bonus, because I think there's a lot of times there's a disconnect for people who are in a particular circumstance being the receivers of a message from people they think haven't been there before, like,
Right.
oh, they're college educated and they're this and they're that. They don't know what I'm doing or what I'm going through. So come on, tell
Right.
us about the background and how you made the choice to do what you do and how you got here.
Okay, so I'm glad that you really talked about this conversation, because I think that people who know me now may think that, oh my gosh, it's going to be hard for her to be able to relate where I am, especially if I'm in a certain tax bracket, or I've had some financial negatives in my life or mistakes in my life. Trust me, you are hearing and you're looking at a face of a young woman who was homeless. Okay, I was homeless not for a period of time where I had somewhere to go. If I didn't have a address for more than what I wanted to in periods in my life, USPS had nowhere to deliver me mail. So I remember the days of being on the bus and riding around with my two young boys, trying to figure out where we were going to go, because we didn't have much. You don't know what you don't know. This is nothing to take away from my parents. They can really teach me as far as their money knowledge went. So having money conversations inside of our home was just not something that we had, that was common. And so with that, not having the knowledge that I needed to be able to make the right financial decisions, and just being a rebel in my own right, left me in a position where I ended up homeless. And so that was the pivotal moment for me, just knowing, looking at my two boys, that they had no idea. They're thinking that they're just riding the bus or doing these things and staying in motels because this is some type of vacation. No, we just didn't have anywhere really to live. And so for me, it was hitting rock bottom, losing everything that I own. If it was not in a backpack or a bag we could carry, I literally had everything that I owned on my back, in my hands, and that was including my two kids. So for me, it is a service that is I am challenged to make sure that I let people know that right offhand. And so I applaud George for giving you a little bit a backstory, allowing me to share that, because I don't want you to think that I haven't been where many of you are, whether that's homeless, divorced, two kids, being a single mom, all of those things. Been there, done that, can write a book, and actually I am. One of the things that I said on national media, and kind of just sparked a lot of people's attention, is when I said, you know what, me being homeless was a gift. And everybody was like, what? And I said, you know why? Because it really made me look at money and my relationships with money and where I needed to go, my relationship with, and lack of knowledge of how important credit was, and all of those things that I didn't think about or felt like was important then. Right when I was had my back against the wall, that's when I came out fighting with this. And I started to challenge myself to learn as much as I could about finances. So I went from being homeless to finally getting myself back into a position where I could get a job. But I wasn't just settled on that. I said, you know what, I deserve more than what I wanted and what I was working for. And so I went after what I thought was my bucket list job, and the job that I was going to retire. And I actually became a government employee. So I went from being on public assistance and needing the government to help me, to now being able to go in and be a government employee, because the knowledge and the skill set that I had allowed me to be employable. But it also me getting myself back into a good financial position and bettering my credit, and credit being one of the things that they looked at, especially the division of the government that I was working for. That was part of the background. So knowing that one thing was something that was going to allow me to increase my net worth was important to me. But I thought that my journey was going to stop right there. Everybody thought it was crazy, even including my supervisor, when I turned in my 2 weeks notice and said, hey, I'm going to start and go after my dreams. I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to teach people what I know. I'm going to show them how I've been able to do this, from someone who started literally with nothing, to be able to build multiple businesses and to be able to employ others. I did this just from me losing everything that I had, and really being able to now walk away from my government job. And let me tell you guys, when I said that that government position was my bucket list, you wouldn't have told me the day that I submitted my application, that I was going to walk away and start a business. No, I was like, no, I can't take those type of chances. I've already been. So for me, it was like I was going to ride that thing out. But seeing more and more people suffer financially, and especially when it came to small businesses, I got to see it was a gift and a curse in the division that I worked in, because of course I did audits from your small businesses, your mid-sized businesses, and all the way to your local and global corporation. But what I saw in the small business was that the disparity of financial knowledge, how to really be able to build a business, really being knowledgeable on what it takes to be compliant with your state, local, and federal governments. I just kept seeing that over and over again. So I said, you know what? I remember my very last case working with the government, and just seeing them just lose everything that they worked for. $500,000. They took everything that they had out of their 401k to make this business, and to know that they were losing it for not even six figures was just very disheartening to me. And so right after that, when I complete their case, and I hope one day that they hear this and see me, that so I can say thank them, because I would not be in this position had I not worked with them to help them to get to at least salvage what they could of their financial situation. And so from there, I went out on my own, and within 9 months, I was in 2018, I was recognized as one of the fastest growing businesses by Forbes in 2018. And it kind of just went from there. George, just to be really honest, shortly after that, I became a partner of Self, which you guys know as formerly Self Lender. They are a fintech company that helps people across the country build positive credit profiles. So I'm now a partner. We work together. I've worked with him also the last several years, and we continue to work together. Being able to now be able to share more of what I do from a standpoint of being able to come onto iHeartMedia's platform, whether that is with the Breakfast Club or with Wealth Wednesdays, really expanded the growth of the business. And so now most people know me. They call, I have people who are in my tribe, and I told them that I'm going to help them to create their own paths to wealth. And so I would love for you guys to ask me any questions that you have about where I am, what's next for me, and how did from whether that was back then, right now, or what do I have ahead for 2021. So I'm excited to be here. This is an amazing opportunity, and George and I have been trying to coordinate this throughout our both busy schedules.
Have you, I don't know if this is just something I've paid attention to, but I'm finding more and more that the most successful people always seem to have had a homeless stint, including myself. What is it about? What is it that happens?
I think it's the rock
mindset?
bottom journey. I think it's the rock bottom. I don't know.
Is it something in the
mind
that
I think
when you get to that place, all bets are off? Like
yeah, you're either off with it. I think that you have no choice. And so the reason why I tell people I was homeless is because I remember doing a media interview, and one of the young ladies was like, I would have never thought you were homeless. She said, just looking at you, seeing things on social media and seeing you in media, I would have never thought you were homeless. And that was the epiphany for me, because I didn't know homeless had a face. I didn't know it had. And so I wasn't trying to say it in any way, but I was just like, you never know what someone's story is. You never know. Just because you see them put together and they may have gotten themselves together, really pull back and figure out and ask that person, how did you really get here? It's not just about it's not just about social media. It's not just about having a website. Really ask that person, how did you really get here? What was your real why? What was your real why?
That's another interesting point I want to dig into. I've found, I'll say it, I've never, ever, I've never met a successful person that wasn't not only willing, but excited to share the how with the next person.
Right.
And The only time I've seen an unwillingness to do so is where there may be some personal knowledge where they feel like, well, this person is wasting my time or whatever, but outside of that, why don't people come to successful people more and ask that direct question of how to, or what can I do, or like, I know for myself, one of the things that I had to do, because I was too ignorant and prideful to just ask the direct question. So I was like, hey, let me position myself to add some value to this person so I can get some value from that person,
Right. Right. And
the
I think,
psychology behind all of this. How does this work? Like, how can we cut out all of the mental barriers that goes on between what we want and where we are?
I think a lot of it is that some things are deeply rooted. And so this is why I'm a huge advocate for mental wellness, whether that's from therapy, you just talking it out with someone that you're close to. There has to be some type of transformation. You got to get some of that out. I'm a huge person on brain dumping, and just being, even if you never shared any writing, write it down, get that out, because there's not going to be you're not going to be able to take in new, productive, and manageable information if you're still holding on to things that you are still trying, if you haven't worked through certain things. A lot of people are like, when I first started to share my story, I cried a lot, and it was because I was still trying to work through it.
Mhm.
I was still trying to work through, man, what are they going to say about me? Are they really going to take me as a person who's a financial educator? Are they really going to look at me as a consultant, knowing that I was homeless? You didn't manage money before. So how in the heck are you going to get on a national platform and tell people, oh, by the way, I was homeless. I mismanaged what I had, and it left me and my two children in a situation where we had no place to call home. So for me, just being able to work through those things, and that was my own block. Who knew that as more as I started to keep sharing those things, it was a part of my healing. So I can tell this story and not cry about it anymore because I'm healed from that place. And I think that if more people would really be able to shed a few tears and just let it out, okay, it happened. You can't cry over spilled milk. You can't change the things. Okay, because I hear a lot of people who contact me and they're like, Sharita, I'm in my late 30s, I'm in my late 40s, I'm in my 50s, I'm years away from retiring, and I'm just now thinking about my net worth. I'm just now thinking about how important it is to start managing my money. It's never too late. And I think
Mhm.
that the internet, I tell people who contact me, don't let the internet rush you or make you feel like that you're lack thereof because you're not meeting certain expectations. That wasn't the journey for you. But the thing is, now applaud yourself because now you're ready. It doesn't matter. The worst thing that you can do is try to force anything, especially financial management, on someone who's just not ready. They're going to rebel more and more and more. So you have to let them just work through that and really be able to show them what the end result. It can't just be tangible things, because
Mhm.
guess what? What I've learned, George, is that some people can't handle financial increase.
There's the old adage, more money, more problems. And I tell
Right,
people all the time that the only thing that makes that true is that if you never learn the principles,
right,
then more abundance of money will not change. It'll only increase with the problems you already have because
right,
you're going to have the same behaviors.
right,
Behaviors being a reflection of how you think,
right.
brings us back to this question of the psychology. You mentioned earlier, you said, hey, I don't begrudge my parents for this, they could only take me to the extent of their financial knowledge. And then even in sometimes, like, you have to come to the awareness that they may not have been wrong. There just was a shift in culture that made what they knew or how they did things irrelevant. But the principles of money shall remain the same. You know, whether we're talking about the richest man in Babylon or the Bible, it's the principles of money will remain the same. So how do we get, because I think that Americans in particular, probably the world over, but Americans in particular, in more so Black America, is, in my opinion, suffering from consumerism, and have been since the 80s. Is there, like, you mentioned the time that you were homeless or whatever, but what I paid attention to in your story was you were here, in a determination got you to this place where you had, for all intents and purposes, what you thought at the time was your dream job, your bucket list, you know. And I remember a time for myself that I relate to that next transition. One of my favorite songs is by CeeLo, is just the intro to the song, where he says, I remember when I lost my mind. It was something special about that day. You know how many people told me I had lost my mind when I walked away from a $90,000 a year job to go into business for myself? Then there was the next part. I failed. Man, what an embarrassment. And I don't know if it was more hurtful that I failed or more hurtful that the people that I knew was standing around hating and told me I was crazy was going to celebrate. But then there was the perseverance, the tenacity that is like, okay, so, you know, I'm not going to die saying I haven't tried. I did that. It didn't work or whatever. We'll readjust. We'll come back and, you know, and now because of that mindset, I'm really writing my own script, not to mention my own checks, but, you know, and writing the opportunities. But I also noticed that one of the hardest things it was for me to do was to get out of the save everybody, take everybody with me mode, just learning. And man, because even when I understood it, I hadn't mastered it yet. And I really wanted everybody to come along with me. But what I found was, as I had increased, I had decreased. My circles decreased, but the quality of the circles, the conversations were different. The conversation, and I couldn't, even when I would come back over to this circle, I couldn't have those conversations, you know, in that place. And it bothered me, but I had to get out of my own way. And as I did, I've got better and better conversations, but I realized a lot of what was happening, what was in, you know, the parameters of my own thoughts, you know, what I believed loyalty was, and, you know, what my comfort zone was. I was on your site earlier and you talked about getting uncomfortable to get comfortable. And, you know, it's funny how it ties together, because I was asking you about why is there this common ground in successful people being homeless or whatever. But what I think it is, just my opinion, I think that people who possess a degree of complacency, and there's a difference between complacency and comfort. You know, people who are complacent are not going to risk comfort to go to the next place. It's easier to just stay here and dream about there than it is to get uncomfortable. You educate people in these ways all the time. Do you find that more than anything, people's thoughts are just in their own way?
Yes, people. Sometimes what I've noticed is that people's thoughts are truly in their own way because a lot of the people who reach out to me, they know that they need what they need to do. It's just that their thoughts and the people who are around them, um, may be holding them back. But one of the things is sometimes is, and I had this conversation earlier, so it's just like full circle, is that sometimes we're our own worst enemy. Sometimes is we have all the tools to be successful. We have all the tools to be able to make monetize our gifts. I'm huge on telling people that because I don't want you to have multiple jobs. Let's figure out what your gifts are and monetize those. So when I say add commas to your bank account, you already have it. You just need to be able to put the things in place. Because the only way that you're going to change your financial trajectory is that you're going to be uncomfortable. I'm not always winning, but one thing is I'm not losing. I'm learning in the process. So even though I had some people and I'm like, wow, I'm doing this. When I share with people, I said, me and my husband, we pay our bills quarterly. That's always like some people are like, what? Really? And I said, yes, let me tell you something. The government position that I was in, we got paid once a month. You were going to figure out how to become a better money manager. So I'm very appreciative to my government job. I had already been teaching myself how to become a better money manager, but working for the government supercharged that. And so that's why one thing that I took away from that is meeting some and working with some amazing people, but also being able to get to a position where I can now literally say to people, I can show you how to pay your bills 4 times a year and really mean it because I'm doing it. And I have clients that are doing it as well. You have to have some goals. Writing them down. I'm a huge person, and I'm a woman of faith, and I'm one of my favorite scriptures is write the vision and make it plain. But one of the things is you have to be able to do the work and be willing to let go of some of the things and people that are going to that's hindering you from being able to be great in every aspect of your life, and especially in your money.
I totally agree. And somebody right now is watching. You or I don't see them. They're not posting their thought right now. And they're saying to themselves, how am I supposed to pay my bills quarterly based off of this little bitty money that I make? She doesn't know what she's talking about. My bills are bigger than my money. What's money management when you don't have money to manage? What would you say to that person?
So for me, what I would say to that person is that I didn't start that way. I share it with you that I was homeless. Okay. I was in a position where I had to wait on the government to help me to make up the gap. But one of the things that I can tell you is that what you have, really look at that and see if you're managing it. Because most of the time when I'm working with clients, and if there's anybody else who wants to challenge me on this, I can be able to identify things where you're overspending, whether that's eating out, consumerism, you're buying things, you're on Amazon, because Jeff Bezos is not about to hit the $1 trillion mark without certain people in every income bracket being attributing to that. So one of the things is that we have to be able to get into a position where we have to have someone to have an outside look, because sometimes is you can't get blood from a turnip, but a lot of times is we don't see in black and white where we're putting our money because we've become so disconnected with our money. We've become so disconnected with it because we're in the swipe era. You swipe, 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 and then we got out of looking at our bank statements. So most of the time, what I tell people, if and this is always a scary thing, George, when I tell them, I said, you know what? I want you to pull out your bank statements for the last 30, 60, or 90 days. Look at it because we're in the top of the year. Let's compare your spending 2019 to 2020. really be able to just see. And I can guarantee you, you can put some money back into your household just like that. And you didn't pick up an extra job. You didn't go have to do DoorDash or any of those things to be able to do this. Because I show people right where it is. No, that those five forms that I have my clients fill out, they said they feel like they went to therapy. They hit a count. Because let me tell you something. It's 5 forms. I'm not even lying to you guys. It's not a whole lot of things. But if George wants me to come back with one of my clients, I don't mind. Now we can do a part 2 of this. She said, I had a whole therapy session with myself. I said, well, what was, and it's not one person, because we collect data, because I always want to be able to see how I can help to really help people make that mindset shift. And they're like, I started looking at this thing, looking at their forms and looking at my bank accounts and looking at my credit card statements. And a little bit of me, I either get one thing. They're like, well, it's not that bad. Let's get started. Well, you know what? I had to drink wine to get through this. Like, I had to drink wine to get through these forms. And that's because, you know what? It's because right there, it's right in your face. You get to see it. You check the box. I wasn't there with you. I made this. It is a process that before you talk to me, I asked my first question. Anybody said, so how was the journey to completing those? Most of it's like, man, listen, it's gonna be one of those 2 things that most people say. I have about 15 to 20% people like, well, you know what? I knew it was bad, but I'm ready. Most people are like, don't judge me. Did you judge me when I submitted the forms back? Because I'm like, no, I said in all my verbiage, this is a no judgment zone. But most people never have that moment with their money or their mindset. And that is what's going to require the shift, because it doesn't matter if we show to them, George. It is something about sitting in your truth, especially your financial truth.
I want to ask you about it.
Yeah.
Let me ask you. So do you ever find where people are, and I'm asking this because I find this a lot on the suitability side when it comes to placing life insurance, or the conversation, like I was just speaking with the young man earlier this week.
Okay.
He had seen me online. He said, okay, well, I have this unique family structure, but I've had these changes in my life just in the last 2 years, and I want to have the life insurance conversation. I have some, I don't know if it's enough. And when we talked about it, he was so blown away at the different types and the different things it could do for him.
It's a wealth transfer vehicle.
Oh, and then the other part was when it came to like, okay, well, let's discuss, how much you need and what does it cost or whatever. It was an interesting conversation because he wasn't a wasteful young man in the sense that he's motivated to invest. So he's actually, done property flips and different little things that he's doing. What was interesting though is he never considered what would be the fallout if he was on his way home with all of these projects in play, that he's managing quite well. He's not financially stressed, but he never considered what the fallout would be with these hanging ends if something happened to him on the way home. But then, and this is ultimately the question, do you find that people just don't know how to be honest with themselves about their money? Because when we talked about getting uncomfortable and talked about the complacency, what I found is, and I get criticized for this all the time because I say it so unapologetically. It's really like my own self-inner joke or whatever, but it's like, if you're standing in front of me with the iPhone 20 and a new pair of Jordans, and you're telling me that you don't have this or that, or you're asking for this or that, and I'm watching you wear your mismanagement of money, or where your discomfort. People say, I had somebody tell me just yesterday, well, are you suggesting that people shouldn't have any enjoyment in life at all or whatever. And I'm like, no, that would sound crazy. But let's
Right.
be honest about it. Like George is a bit of a cigar aficionado. George loves his whiskey and his cognac. When I'm having a conversation about my money habits, anything that involves excluding or cutting that back is not a part of that conversation. We just have to
Right.
be honest about that thing. So, and I think that people think that it's condemning, but it's really reassessing, reevaluating, and reprioritizing. Like I'll be the first one to tell you, well, if it got like that tight or whatever, I'll cut cable, cut the phone plan. But this over here is gonna do what it do.
Right.
So, what does it take for people? Because it seemed like you get them there faster. What does it take for them to have that? Wow, this is what I'm doing.
I'm telling you, George, those 5 forms. I call them the financial favorites. Like because I really thought about it as I started to create them. Like, what is it? I just didn't want them to see numbers. How can I bring into something where it's tangible for them to see that will also be a mindset trigger? What are we doing? What are we doing really? Because I think just talking about it and having these conversations is great. I'm all about education. But I also think, again, being able to let people, like you said, let you just sit in it, because sometimes we don't really know. Like you said, someone told me that just the same conversation. They were like, so what are you saying? I said, your mortgage and your car note are almost the same. And I was just like, but you're telling me that you don't have any money, that you're trying to make up the gap and you're tired of living this way. Your mortgage and your rent are a couple of hundred. I mean, I'm sorry, your mortgage and your car payment are very close in number.
What is the obsession? Because one of the things that I notice in the consumer side of the industry, and I don't think there's a better example than the car industry when we talk about finance. The car industry has been one of the most successful businesses worldwide at making a product available for you when you have no business with that particular product. And then somehow they manage to, I don't know how they do this. I'm sure there's some geniuses that figured this out, but they managed to attach this status quo with the brand, then close you on this idea of the performance, and somehow get you to make a depreciating liability decision.
I like that. I'm about to use that. I like
that stretches out. Like I remember when the longest finance term was like 4 years, then 5, and now 7 to 10
months.
is so common.
You know, 84 months is common. Yeah,
it's so common that it's almost like, and I tell people, like, okay, what changed? They just gave you more time for more debt because their price went up. Nothing else changed.
Right. Right.
And again, I just don't know. Like I had a reverse challenge. Like for me, it was releasing my dollars to go out and make more dollars. I was the guy that go to the casino with a $20 limit and don't let me win 5 because I'm gone. I win 5, I'm out. I won, I'm up. All I did was
Are we related? I spent Vegas. Let me tell y'all something. I went to Vegas. I said, look, I won this $5. You would have swore I won 500,000. I was gone. I was celebrating like I won 500,000. I'm with you, George. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And so it just saddens me when I hear people and they contact me and they say, hey, I'm in a car where I'm upside down, and now I was so in a rush to be able to get into a mortgage and to get into my home or my dream home that now I'm feeling like I'm house poor because I can't do anything outside of those two things between the car and the house are keeping you feeling trapped. And it just saddens me because I know some of it is the lack of education and then some of it is just predatory lending on both parts. But
Mm-hmm.
but this is why I commend you for having conversations like this because I think that unfortunately with COVID, we've lost so many people and we're still trying to combat this. But I think it was an aha moment in everything from from just mindset, health, because a lot of times we were overeating, overspending on eating out and all of those things that had become like so common that now we're a lot more health conscious than before because we're dealing with this pandemic, because we're dealing with this pandemic. But I think that I'm hoping, because I had this conversation earlier, I'm hoping that all of the negative things that are happening will be the push that most people need to really be able to reduce those numbers because it saddens me. We did a clubhouse and it was CNBC said that most people can't touch $10,000 no matter what tax bracket they're in. And that's sad to me. And that just kind of just pushed me back to is how can they touch 10,000 when most over 70% of Americans don't have $500 saved for an immediate emergency? You're either
Now that brings me to this philosophy that I use quite often. My kids get tired of me talking about this kind of stuff, but I tell them, hey, one day I'm gonna be going, you're gonna value these lessons. I tell people all the time, if there's this crazy thing out here about money can't buy happiness. And to some degree that is true, but the extent that is true is that if you're just an unhappy person, money won't change that, but as it relates to having problems. And I forget where I first heard this, but it was years ago. And you ever had that thing just hit you in the chest like, oh,
I write it down.
That it's not a problem until it exceeds your finances.
Ooh, yes. Right.
And that had to get deep down in my soul, in my spirit, because I thought about that. And on any given day, no matter what the situation or circumstance is, if you're able to pay to take care of it, it's not a problem.
It's not a problem.
It's when you can't pay to take care of it that it's really actually a problem. And you talked about credit. And after this, we're going to go into more about what you do and how you can help people and how they can reach you. But you talked about credit. And right now, even though I'm inside in my studio, if I throw a rock, if it leaves this room, it's going to hit a credit repair agent. And I don't have an issue with the credit repair. What I have an issue with is
the lack of education.
To me, it's the equivalent of having a bad tire and going get it patched or whatever. That's a behavioral disconnect where value is misplaced. I know, and I'm sure you have seen, that what leads to bad credit more than anything else. I mean, obviously, sometimes it's just circumstances. Something happened, something in your control just happened. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But
job loss. Yeah.
Most times, it's a behavioral circumstance. It's your relationship with money that led you to this credit demise, if you would, and fixing the negative stuff on your credit and raising your score is not gonna fix that if you don't change the behavior or even understand it.
Right. A
Got you.
700, 800 credit score with with someone with the same negative behaviors is a setup for financial destruction.
Exactly, because you're going to go with the other part. Why is there not more discussion
Right.
outside of our professional circles? Because I see you talk about it. I see Jay talk about it, myself,
Shout out to JVille. Yeah.
and countless others. You know, there's this thing, and you're gonna have to excuse me. I'm gonna have to vent a second on this one.
Oh, go ahead. We got a little time.
There's this thing that happens where people will create a viral energy behind bad information on Facebook University or financial Twitter, and yet I see so many of people like you and myself that have all of this quality information that we're trying to
Right.
dump on people.
Right.
So back to credit.
You're not alone.
Why is there not more conversation about leveraging credit or leveraging debt for income? Why is there so much conversation about the illustrious 850
because
or the 700 club, just to be able to go out? And even though I see a lot of these agents that are doing this, they'll even be like, yeah, you can get the car of your dreams. Oh, you're ready to buy a house, and I'm like, that's not why. Is you just going, never mind.
You're going backwards. No, and I'm glad, man. We got to pick this up. Y'all, if y'all want a part two to this. But look, this is good. But I'm with you on that. And sometimes, Jay and I, and you and I've been talking on social, like, you're thinking like, are we the only ones seeing this? Like, this is crazy. And so I'm glad that conversations like this are continuing to happen. So kudos to you again for, just being out there and really putting out how you're feeling, because it's sad. And ultimately, myself and you and Jay, we ultimately end up seeing these people's pain points by those quick fixes, because to me, it's not a win if you didn't educate them, because they're back in the same situation. Because one of the things that we go do is, when we are not educated on those things, we become prey to financial institutions, creditors, the car industry and all of that, because they know. And one of the things is, if we are going to help people to be able to get out of certain credit buckets and financial pictures, we need to make sure that we continue to be able to teach them. I don't want to, it saddens me when I see people who come to me and they said they've been through 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 credit repair companies. And I'm like, what is your out goal? Well, I just want a 700 to do. My question is, to do what? Like, to do.
I gotta use that.
Yeah, to do, like, because when people tell me that, they're just like, well, Sharita, I want a 700. Well, teach you how to get into the 800s. I said, well, let me give you the disclaimer of those higher credit limits. I said, let me tell you this. I said, I'm in the 800s, and I'm going to tell you something. My current utilization for this month for last month was 1%. And they're like, what? I thought it was 30%. I said, you know what? This is why we need to educate people, because most of the people who have those type of credit scores are using only 1 to 5%, because they know that if we try to tick over to 30, you're gonna be 6 something in about 30 days after FICO cycles that out. And so I tell people, I said, I was at 830, 834. I tried to go to 11%. FICO treated me like I was a beginner. Dropped my 17. So I'm not going to treated me like I was new. And that's because that was not the pattern of my normal spending. And so just being able to bump people and educate them, 30% is good, but I always tell people who work with me, we're not going to even go nowhere near 30 because I want you to get used to being below 15, managing 10 without having to have 100 credit cards in your wallet just to make up 10,000, just to have a $20,000 limit. You can get into a position where you can get the higher tier cards that are not going to charge you 22 to 29% to have it in your wallet, and you miss one payment and you're back. Now you owe more money, and now you possibly could drop your score 100 points. Educate the people on all of it than just fixing their credit. Teach them what that is, because it's always a shocker. Anytime Jay and I say something, and I think his credit, I think we were saying, I haven't been over 5% in years. And most people are like, what is the point? Like, what? That's always the thing. And I'm like, but that should tell you the amount of credit that I have on the personal side. But I've been able to leverage going from 300 and being denied by a well-known bank that we'll leave unnamed. When I was trying to start to build my credit, because let me tell you, you can still get denied a secured card. You can still be denied for a secured card. Let the people know that you can still
or pay 25% on a secured card.
Right. That, and make sure you get the right one, because some of them won't graduate. You still, and even when you get those credit cards, you have to remember some of those credit cards will grandfather you in, because guess what? You were in subprime rates when you got approved. So now you're mad because now you've gotten your stuff together. Now you're in a different financial position, and your credit is now good. I mean, fair, good, or excellent. And now you're wanting them to increase you want them to take $500 credit card and to give you 5,000 or 50,000 on there. No, it will not happen. You know why? Because you got into that card most of the time that was grandfathered in. So it was a preset limit on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was
so we're definitely going to have to do a part 2 so we can have the conversation about leverage and credit to debt ratios and things of that nature. But in this last several minutes that we have, I want you to tell everybody what it is you really do. That I call it a ministry, honestly.
Yeah.
But that services that you do, how you're able to help, because I think sometimes people see our relatability or access to us and think that they start to discount what it is we do or the levels that we do it. So you work with some major capital organizations globally, for that matter, and work on everything from city projects to you name it. So as it relates to the micro to small size businesses and individuals, what are the things that you do that help get them together?
First of all, the first thing I do is make sure that we can shift the mindset. That's key. Whether I'm working with individual or I'm working with small business, because if you've reached out to me, then there's definitely some things that you might have some issues with, or you may need to just kind of identify. It may not just be a cash flow problem. It could be a mindset shift, and that's why you don't see those things showing up in your bank account. You don't see those things showing up when it comes to your FICO scores or your paydex scores when you're dealing with business credit. So for me, we're definitely going to analyze where you are when it comes to that. Really identify how we can align what you want to do with where your mindset is and what the paths are. So we create a journey. This is not a sprint. So if you want to go from 0 to 100 real quick, that's probably not the journey that I would advise for you to do. So yes, not a quick fix. I like quick wins. So we do financial wins, but the fixes that's not my forte. I'm going to really be able to show you how to better manage your money, because you may be managing your money, but is there a way for you to leverage what you're doing? how can you add commas to your bank account without having to take on 2 or 3 or 4 more side hustles or to be able to work more hours? No, we will deep dive into that so I can help you to identify ways for you to be able to create what I like to call pillow money, and while you're being able to now pay off debt, because I know a lot of people are not in a journey where they just want to completely be debt free. If that is not you, we still work together. I want to help you to at least reduce your debt by 35 to 50%, because that puts more money back into your household, which ultimately allows you to be able to further grow your business if that's what you decide to do. We also help you from a building business personal credit, because I believe in not just a score, because people in the 800s can be denied. So I want to make sure that we help you to build the right credit profile that makes you attractive to any lender, whether that's business or personal. When it comes to business credit, we want to make sure that to help you build it the right way, because you want to make sure that you're not just setting yourself up to just have a bunch of vendor accounts. How do you actually do business with the bank and make a situation where you can get lines of credit? You can get those things that are really going to be able to help you to move the chains in your business. Finally, one of the things that I always like to do is, people know me, I like to be able to get people access to funding. So whether that's from a grant situation, because I'm all about other people's money, really being able to help you to gain access not only to the table, but access to the money that you need. I sit on the board for BAM, which is a minority association that helps startups to be able to gain access to capital. So I always want to be a resource, whether you're my client, you're following me, or you're just trying to just see, is this person really who she says it is? George verifies everybody. Yeah, right.
Can I ask you something about that?
Yes, definitely.
Because every time I have someone on the show that mentions that they can route people to capital, I start to have my phone blow up. And I want you to speak to this, if you would.
Right.
If you could just give me 3.
Right.
What are 3 things that business owners have to have without exception to gain access to this capital?
You first have to know your numbers. You have to know your numbers. No one's going to invest in you, whether that's a grant in equity stake. No one's going to invest in you if you don't know your numbers, because they want to know how, even if it's the grant, they're going to want to know, do you know your numbers? How do you plan to be able to use this? And why do you need it? That's the same thing when
the grant part too, because some people have the misunderstanding that, well, rather than invest in the type of services that can help me get all of these numbers together, I'll just write a grant, or I'll just get somebody to write a grant.
You still need to know your numbers. Still need to know. I'm going to tell you that. That's the number one. I started with number one. You have to know your numbers. You need to make sure your back office is together. You got to know your numbers, but you have to make sure that your business structure and how you're filing, that is so key. Because a lot of times, this is why a lot of people are scrambling right now, because they were not filing correctly, if they were filing at all. But now you need to be able to get access to funding. And so when they're asking you for certain documents, whether that's financial documents or business documents, you don't have it. You have got to have those things together. And number 3, you have to understand and know that when you're asking for access, whether that is grants or funding of any sort, that you need to know that you cannot rely just on that. You still have to bring some skin to the game. They're not going to cover everything. They want to know where your head is in it. You have to have sweat equity. I can introduce you to several funding sources, but if you don't have those major 3 there, it's like dead. It's like it's a dead interview, because they're going to ask me, well, why was this person prepared, and did they not know? sometimes we get told no because we're just not prepared on our own end, especially when it comes to our businesses. So I can tell you, please, please, please know your numbers, have your financial and your business documents up to par. If you do not know how to be able to pitch, you really need to know how to be able to pitch your business so that people that are on the other side can listen to you and know exactly what you do, but they don't have a lot of time. So you got to be very clear on what you do, how you do it, and how they're going to get a return on their investment.
That last part, there's a lot of different like networking type groups or whatever that focus on elevator pitches, 5-minute pitches or whatever. I found as I'm interviewing people, sometimes people have a little bit of a script,
right?
But if you go off that script, they get lost in the sauce.
Right.
Questions about your business should never intimidate you. Opportunity to talk about your business. Let's be clear. People spend tens of thousands of dollars for the opportunity to talk about their business. So any opportunity you have to talk about your business, you have to be ready and know your business. Now, I will be first to admit, hey, don't, if I'm sitting back in the cigar lounge putting down some whiskey, I'm not trying to get into what all I do. I'll give you a little bit of service, give you a card. Yeah, call me later. Let's talk about what's this game or whatever. But, still in all, outside of that, it's like, you have to not just be passionate about it or work a lot of non-productive hours. You have to know your business, and part of knowing your business, and you mentioned this earlier, is having skin in the game in the sense of doubling down on your personal knowledge. Let's be clear. Let's use you for an example. Forbes, MSNBC, iHeartRadio,
CNBC,
Archon, list goes on. So you stopped reading books and learning stuff when you first got on to all of that, or
No, I'm still learning. I'm actually taking 2 courses right now.
And you're in the 800 club.
No, I can. The day you stop learning is the day that you said that you don't want to succeed. I'm nowhere near where the goals that I have for myself. All the accolades are, those are great. But one of the things is that I'm continuously learning. I told you guys, I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to make the government one of my biggest customers. So what did I do? I just finished an accelerator that allows me to be able to really be able to get into a position in putting my business in front of government agencies and federal agencies. So with that is I'm always learning. I'm in an advanced grant writing class. I love writing. So why not be able to monetize that and maybe help employ more people? So those are things that you continually have to learn.
We're gonna have to. You have to make a note of that when we have you back. We do have to get in, because it was my intention to actually get into this today, but the nature of the spirit just is there. But we absolutely have to talk about Hub and MWE and those types of certifications, because I think that
it's a game changer.
Is it okay if I vent a little bit, just a little bit? I ain't gonna be long, but
go ahead. George asked me to come on. I was like, look, block my schedule out to the end of the day, y'all.
I'm not gonna even speak on it. I'm gonna pose it as a question to you. Because this is kind of what these 3 things were about. But what happens to your perception of a person that is in business, allegedly in business, sometimes business, but they come to you and they're emphatically asking for you to basically plug them into your network of juice and influence and access and capital, but they do so with a sense kind of entitlement because they spoke to you a couple times, but the extent of their business being in order is they did a DBA or an LLC. They have no P&Ls. They have no balance sheets. They have no streamlined sales processes. They don't know their numbers, but they want you to plug them in to your resource. Can you speak to why? Because I think sometimes people think that, oh, well, George is acting uppity now or whatever, but it's like, I kind of worked hard for a reputation of integrity and, things like that. If I plug you into my power source, I'm essentially saying,
co-signing.
right, you're on the field. Yeah, that's the word.
I don't co-signing.
Can you talk about that for a minute?
Okay, so I say this all the time, and there's a difference between having a network and an ecosystem. I'm an ecosystem builder.
Say that again.
Okay. So there's a difference between having a network and an ecosystem. I'm an ecosystem builder. So when people ask me that, they're like, what do you mean? I know a lot of people. They're a part of my network. George is part of my ecosystem. So when he said, hey, Sharita, let's just do this. Okay, let's make it happen. The reason why that is because we know that we add value to our potential audiences and that to one another. So once someone's looking for anything that's related to what George is doing and I vetted them for him, our ecosystem is going to do the background checks for them. I would never just plug someone that just said, hey, I was in your DM. I need to get on George's show. Okay, well, what do you do? See, I'm doing all the verifications because I want you guys to think about it. Your ecosystem is like your signature. It's your name on it. Your network is like, hey, follow them on social media, send them an email. You're not doing any extra things to make sure that relationship is built or established. That's the ecosystem. We keep the ecosystem. I'm not
co-signing for you to damage my credit.
Yeah. That's like adding the authorized user and giving them the code, and you know that they got bad money management habits. So that's on you if it goes wrong. You can't be the bank. The bank is gonna say, look, you are responsible for those charges that you allow for your authorized user. So that's why I say I'm an ecosystem builder. I meet people and they become a part of my network. You have to graduate to become a part of the ecosystem. And so that is about human capital. That's about, what do they say? What's the buzzwords? Human capital, social capital, building the right relationships, because that's what's going to allow you to be able to get access to the table when you're wanting to be able to sit at certain things and with people that are in my ecosystem. That means that they're looking at me to say, Sharita, you have done all of the back work and have co-signed for this person to be here. So if anything goes wrong, it's on you. So that's why I said just knowing the difference, because I see a lot of people who are like, oh, I know such and such, and let me put you in the door with them and let me do this. That is, make sure that person is going to see the things through, because I'm like, this my ministry. What did they say? Your name is everything. All you have is, and I'm a firm believer in that. I have companies, but you guys know me as Sharita M. Humphrey. I'm sharing money healing, because I'm not going to be SMH out of these streets and just shaking my head. My initials mean that I'm sharing money healing. So when I show up in the room, I told you guys I'm Sharita M. Humphrey, because guess what? I'm putting the things out in the atmosphere is that they are. I just want to be known by my name, not just my companies. I have various companies, but my name means that it can open up access for me. So that allows other people to have access. But you have to know the difference. You can't let everybody into your ecosystem. Everybody does not deserve a cosign. You can't take everyone with you. You have to be able to identify this. And we're going to turn this back to money, because a lot of us become what I tell my clients. They're like, why do you have clients that are debt free? If they debt free, they're good. I said, you know what? You can't become a financial trailblazer. And let me tell you why. Let me tell you and I'm not trying to make this about a ministry, but I'm going to tell you how this is a ministry. If you become debt free and you are in a family where that is something that is new, or you are come from, it's a constant cycle of generational lack, and then you break the chain, guess what? If they know you got it, guess who they're going to go to when things start to happen? You can become prey. That's why I still have debt-free clients, because I'm their financial no. Because the first thing that they're going to say is, hey, you need to talk to my coach. You need to talk to my consultant, because they're still working through being able to manage what they have. And this is what drags a lot of people back into financial stress and debt, because they're trying to take care of everybody in their network and their family, because you made it out. Because you made it out.
Survivor's remorse. I've been there.
Right,
Wanted to
right,
take everybody with me, but when you
right,
figure out who's not supposed to go and the weight get
right,
lighter, you start to fly higher. No gets easier and easier and easier. It's like anything else. You go to the gym, practice and repetition makes for
right.
perfection. You get results from practice and repetition. So how can folks see some of your work,
You
follow you?
They can see some of my work. I try to keep everything in my bio, from, because I know this is a age of receipts. So I try to keep everything. Yeah, I'm all about a receipt. Okay, so I have everything in my link tree. If you go on my bio, you can look at my website. There's a bunch of things that are out there about me. I'm one of those type of people. If you call my office and say, hey, I want to talk to one of your clients, I got clients ready. They ready to jump on the phone with you to say, hey, let me tell you what my journey has been, and what my transformation has been like thus far. The way that you can find me is SharitaMHumphrey.com. I'm Sharita MH on all social media platforms. I'm always giving a lot of financial tips, tools, and resources in my group. I'm actually, if you're watching this and you're live, I'm going to pick a winner. I'm all about, as I climb, I lift. So I always try to make sure that those who support me, and even those who never work with me, I try to invite them into a space where they can get the opportunity to learn from me. I do giveaways. I'm actually doing a giveaway today, so I don't mind having something to give away to your audience as well, George. So I will give a
I
financial
think you've already
consultation.
given a whole lot to our audience today. That's just my opinion. Y'all
So
do the hand clap if y'all agree with. Can we hit the love button on there? Give Sharita
yeah,
some
it's a
love.
love, buddy.
I think y'all you gave a lot just by giving your time and your feedback in this, and I can't wait to have you back so we can get more into the MWEs and hubs and things of that nature, and the how to work with the government, because
Yeah,
and that I'm
yeah,
sorry, y'all, we went off on a tangent, but the thing was that I needed you guys to understand that before you can ask for access, you have to position yourself
right,
to walk through the door.
right,
You can't just come to the door knocking and hoping and praying or whatever. And I love the way you broke down the network versus the ecosystem. And I know some of y'all missed that, so I'm going to rehash that part right there. That part about being able to bring value to the equation. Too
right,
often in this thing called 2021, you guys are out here seeking to get,
right,
seeking access to. And if you go and check out it's still up on Facebook, or you can check it out on YouTube. Today's 5 Minutes of Fire. I referenced Eric Thomas's video that spoke to significant value. And even though that was tied to wage earnings, the moral of the story is when you provide, give significant value, you will find that your access increases.
Right.
You know, my grandmother used to do the hand thing. Where's the camera? Used to do this versus this or whatever.
Right.
You know, you bring significant value. So in order to do that, you have to have your house together. Number one. Number two, you have to really be sincere in that. You have to want whatever, because, you know, some people condemn the concept when it's said as ministry, but when you're working in that purpose, find that passion, monetizing your gifts, as Sharita said at the top of the hour, becomes so effortless because you give so much value. People are now coming to you and your thing expands. You know, when we talk about the networking versus the ecosystem, you want your name to beat you to the room in a good way, not in a bad way. You know how we you know, can we have some family talk for a minute? You know how that conversation go with who all over there? You know, don't be the who
That's
all
real
over
life.
there
That's real life.
You know, be the person that they know because you are there, that everything in the room is of value. You know, that everything you associate with brings value. They just want to be there because they might learn something. They might not. They might have an opportunity there. They might not. They can't afford to miss it because you're there. You know.
Right.
That's all I had to say about that.
That's good, but you're absolutely right. When you are delivering in value, you won't have to chase money or any opportunity or access to any table.
It just, and you know, one of my mentors said, "Hey, success leaves trails." Hey guys, there's nothing new under the sun. Stop trying to reinvent the wheel. You know, innovation is a beautiful thing, but innovate, don't recreate. There's a whole difference between that. You know, and if you can find that thing that fills a need and can provide value in that, I promise you, it's some kind of mystery formula, some kind of mystic spiritual thing that happens. You just find yourself blessed always, you know.
Yeah.
But so yeah, we'll get scheduled to be back on. Y'all go and visit Sharita at SharitaHumphrey.com. Check out her bio, follow her on every platform you can, because this is I'm sorry, I don't normally do this, but I'm gonna put Sharita on the spot a little bit here. But I always tell you guys, you know, you can make the smallest change in your life and see big results. So at the top of the year, I challenged you guys to invest 10 minutes a day into financial literacy. Some of you had some pushback about whether or not that meant, you know, a book, or did I have books I recommended, so forth and so on. Knowing y'all ain't about to pick up no book and read, but I'll tell you this. Follow Sharita on every platform she's on, and I guarantee you in 90 days, and this is just what she gives for free. In 90 days, if you listen and apply, you're going to start to see what they call results. Yeah, education without application, that is not a good equation. But if you listen and apply, you will start to see results. And just like going to the gym, when you start to see that first little cut or whatever, now you're motivated and you want to go and do more. So I'm telling you guys, follow her. The gems that she drops are priceless. You know, she ought to post a cash app out there just for tips, because I'm sure there's been many people that's been blessed that, you know, just be like, you know what, I can't take one of the courses or hire the coach, but I'm gonna just send $10 today because
Thank you.
But
Yes,
thank
I
you very
love it.
much,
I love it.
Sharita.
Thank you guys so much. Those who are watching the replay, definitely join us. I will be back. Thank you for George again for reaching out and coordinating with me for us to really be able to help create financial trailblazers, because I want to see more people on the path to wealth this year. So look forward to seeing you guys and telling you how to have. I'm going to make the government one of my largest customers and showing you how to do that in our next episode.
And you guys look out for us coming to you with stuff as we maneuver through our ecosystems and find a way to get this collaboration done.
Right.
Y'all better hit your wagon, but bring some value in that wagon.
Right. When it's safe to go outside, y'all, I would love to be able to pair with George, bring Jay. Let's do something in person so that you guys can really be able to see that. So yeah, we'll definitely work it out through our ecosystem. But I look forward to hearing from more of you guys. I look forward to continuing to work with George to be able to empower more others across this country to really be able to change their financial trajectory. So with, like Les Brown said, that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you again, Sharita. It's been an absolute honor to speak to you. We look forward to having you back soon. This has been Boss Talk Radio. We will see you guys on Monday for Boss Motivation. See you soon.
Bye.
This is Dr. Tamia Guest with Rejuvenating Chiropractic.
This is Nara Reed with Modified Nutrition Health Coach.
This is Karen Marcel with June Street Barbershop.
This is Tiffany Marcel with Marcel Luxury Realty, and you're listening to Boss Talk Radio.